this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the Razer Leviathan V2 Pro. Now, I don't speak like a normal human being, but I'm here to bring you my thoughts on this compact soundbar, what it's like to use, and the capabilities of it. Now, this is a really interesting soundbar. I did a video recently on the Leviathan V2, but this is a new and updated version that now includes AI head tracking. So if you look at the very center, you'll see there's a little IR camera down there that's designed to track your head with beamforming technology, which essentially allows the speaker to position the audio in such a way that it reaches your ears nicely, which is obviously perfect if you're slouching or adjusting position throughout the day and want to get comfortable sound. Now, as you can see, it's quite a chunky beast, and it sits quite high off the desk. It has some RGB underlighting, which I'll go into a bit of depth in a minute, but it also packs in 5 full-range 2-inch drivers and has a 5.2-inch subwoofer, which is down-firing as well. I'll show you that in a second. Now, this thing's designed to work with THX spatial audio in both virtual headset and virtual speaker modes, and to deliver room-filling sounds. It has a number of different options in terms of the soundscape that you can use and modes that you can switch between, and I'll show you that later on and demonstrate what that's like, because it does make quite a difference. Obviously, it's going to be really hard to demonstrate the sound over video and even what that beamforming technology does in terms of how it affects the audio, the range of it, and also the positional audio. What I will say is it's really interesting in a number of different ways. Now, you have hardware buttons on top that you can just press to switch between these modes. Obviously, it's also adjustable in Razer's Synapse software. There's also little LEDs on either side of the sensor which light up to let you know which mode you're in, so that you can see that in action. What's interesting here is, obviously, as I said, it uses that sensor to work out where your head is. So if you reposition slightly, sit off to the side, or lean back or whatever else, the audio adjusts. What I found is this has some interesting implications, because if you pick up your phone to look at your phone and block the camera, the audio then goes odd because it can't see your face, which is an interesting thing, a quirk of the system, but it shows that it works, and also you just notice that it works in the way that it sort of adjusts the sound. Also delivers really punchy bass and a really good range. Now, you can adjust the level of bass in the Synapse software and customize that, but you'll see it's got quite a little chunky subwoofer that sits underneath the desk. But I was surprised by how loud this soundbar goes and the range of audio. The virtual surround sound settings are really good in that it does create that virtual sound stage, so you feel like the room is being filled up with audio, and also that you've got sound coming from multiple angles. Obviously, it's just a sound bar that sits underneath your monitor. It's designed to work with 27-inch monitors. This is the Samsung Odyssey G9, which is 49-inch, so you can see it looks a bit smaller there. If you had a smaller monitor, you'd probably find it was quite chunky. It is quite big, marginally bigger than the original Leviathan that I did a video on, so a little bit chunkier, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing, depending on your setup though. If you've got a really small monitor, this obviously will look huge, but I think it's able to deliver a much better sound because of it, and also it's just really rich. So a few things about the setup process. You can see this is what it looks like out of the box. You only get a few cables included. Now, it's worth noting that it does work with Bluetooth as well, but you do have a really simple setup if you're using it on PC. And essentially what you need to do is just plug in the subwoofer and the soundbar to the mains power supply, and then you just need to connect up the soundbar itself to your PC using the USB-C cable that's included. You do have a 3.5mm connection if you want to plug your headset in as well. So you've got these easy access buttons on top to switch between sources, adjust the volume and turn the power on and off. And one of the highlights there is definitely that you can just press the power button and Windows will automatically switch back to your other usual source. At the rear, you'll see there's a cable for the subwoofer. You need to plug in a cable from the subwoofer to the soundbar, but otherwise both of them also need powering. Now, the subwoofer is quite a little thing. It's quite a chunky little beast, so you do need some space for this. I've got it tucked under my desk, but you see it's got a down-firing 5.2-inch subwoofer, so it's pretty powerful and capable, and I cranked up the bass on this and then turned the sound all the way up. And let me tell you, when you're playing first-person shooters, it really makes quite a difference to the sound on that. I'll try and leave a sample at the end, but I won't be able to do it justice, because if you're watching on a phone or whatever else, you're not going to hear that sound. You have to just take my word for the fact that it's really capable. And I found it to be really interesting and really pleasant in a number of different ways. I really like the design of it. Now, I will say my complaints, one of the things I noted is it does have RGB lighting. What you will have noticed from a lot of these different shots is you can't really see that. Now, this is under heavy lighting from obviously video lighting and daylight as well. But what I found is you can barely see the chroma RGB on there, even when it's darker. It's very understated, that lighting, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Personally, I'm not too fussed about that bit of it. If you are after a soundbar that's got really bright RGB on the bottom of it, you're probably going to be disappointed. That's the one thing I'll say about this, but it is still really capable in all the other ways that make it interesting in the first place. Now, it is very expensive. It is worth noting that it's not cheap. I'll leave links in the description so you can find out more about the pricing, but it is pretty hefty price tag. Now, one important thing that I will say is though you can switch between the modes in the hardware settings, it's worth diving into Synapse because it does allow you to tweak a few different things. You can see that you can adjust the level of bass, for example, and you can also switch between the various modes and get sort of demo of what each of them does to the sound. So here's a look at the Synapse software to give you an overview of that. So if we dive into the sound settings, you can see obviously you can have volume adjustment, relative ease here. You can adjust the subwoofer level up and down, change to Bluetooth mode. You can also switch between those various modes in here. On the top of the soundbar, you have the 3D button, which is the second button in from the left. Pressing that switches between the various different modes. So you've got stereo, THX audio, which is virtual headset one, and virtual speakers, which is also THX, and then room fill. So stereo obviously gives you that straight on sound, and then the two THX ones gives you that virtual experience. So you can see basically it's giving you a wider soundstage on the virtual speakers. It's basically designed to replicate having 5.1 or 7.1 surround sound speakers. I was actually surprised by how capable that is of delivering that. I used to really like having a full surround sound speaker set up just for the immersion side of it. And this is actually very convincing in terms of what that's like. Obviously, it's not going to be as good, but it is still very effective. The room fill just fills up the whole room with sound and is really powerful, multi sort of direction, but not as good for the positional audio. You then have EQ settings. So on the far left of the soundbar, there's another button that you can press that switch between the various different EQ profiles. So you've got a flat one for gaming, one for movies, music, and then custom. There's also a sound normalization option, which is pretty handy if you're watching content at night. So it normalizes the levels and basically takes out those really loud sounds like explosions and things like that that would wake up your family. Or it just levels things out nicely so you haven't got really quiet talking and then really loud sounds. And again, that's a useful setting that you can turn on and off with relative ease. And then there's the lighting. And you can see that this is set to 100% brightness, and that's what it was as default. But it is just not that impressive from what I've seen. There are various different effects that you can go between. But my experience is that it's just not very impressive at all. A bit sad about that, but... So all told, this is a nice upgrade to the Leviathan V2. The Pro is punchy, has great positional audio, and really good sound. I really like it for a number of different reasons, and I'd recommend checking it out if you're in the market for a new soundbar that also is capable of delivering impressive virtual surround sound and really good bass. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Thanks for watching. Stick around now for a quick sound test, although keep in mind it won't give you the full experience.
Restrain targets.
Contact is secure. I don't know what's happening.
Mirror for contacts.
Roger. Trailers in mode.
Put your hands up.
No traps visible. Can't see anybody.
On my six.
Stick out.
I'm right with you. Deploying chem light. Deploying chem light. Get your hands Get down. I want to see hands. Shoot.
You've made it right to the end of the video, you brilliant legend you. If you've enjoyed it, click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and drop me a comment down below if you've got any questions. If you really enjoyed it, consider joining the channel and see the benefits of doing so. Check out these other videos. You might well find them interesting or useful. And most importantly, have a great life.